So, Act 2 is just a day away from ending, and I was reflecting on my own improvements from this last act when I thought of this video. The hope was that I could use my own experiences from these past months to help you improve your game. So here it is, the first of many to come, 5 tips to get you a full red Dorito in VALORANT. I put a lot of work into making this as concise and precise as possible, so if you could one tap that like button as soon as you hear something of use to you, I'd be extremely appreciative. So without further ado, let's go. By watching this all the way to the end, I can guarantee you will have a deep understanding of VALORANT and gain the biggest portion of the pie of what we like to call game sense. So please make sure to save this video, or even better, write down these tips in your own shorthand so you don't have to watch this all the way through again, saving you time, which is what we're all about on this channel, and well, putting that knowledge to use in entertaining videos. This video was originally intended for lower ranked players to help achieve Immortal status, but having watched some disappointing tip videos that cover higher ranked ranges, I wanted to be sure this video would shortly touch on, yet explain in detail, almost all the key components needed to be a fundamentally disciplined beast when it comes to VALORANT. So to restate that all in short, this video will be extremely helpful to all players from Immortal 2 and down, and a holy grail for those even lower. I only say Immortal 2 and down since, let's be real, to get these bad boys, you gotta be one bad son of a Alright, so tip number 1 is finding a warm-up that quickly taps into your best mechanics and learning proper strafing techniques. So much of this game revolves around being able to make a difference mechanically. So step number 1 is to unlock your potential through warm-up. When you warm up, you push boundaries you didn't know you could, and honestly, with an hour of warm-up, a complete beginner to PC gaming can gain months worth of experience, opposed to someone who doesn't warm up. But greater than this is how aim training relates to game sense training, starting a snowball effect on how quickly you're able to adapt your gameplay to progress higher and higher through the ranks. Take this for example. You're behind an enemy and he's running to the bomb site. You begin to fire only to watch in agony as your crosshair is behind his head the entirety of the spray. He turns around, stops running, and boom, you're dead. Well, in this specific scenario, this would be an issue of tracking. A specific part of your game that you now know after this mistake, you're going to need to spend time working on to clear up. However, much like a devastating loss, you have two choices. You could either hop into another game in which you're bound to make the same mistakes, or you could sit back for a moment and truly see your flaws in their entirety. Thinking analytically like this translates directly into improving your game sense. Play, pick apart, and work. Now all of this will have some serious effects that seep into your game. One of the biggest is you'll now be able to focus more on your game sense, as stressing even 10% less on your aim can yield you far greater results than someone who's worried about how the spray pattern works. From there, you will become what I like to call a team contributor. This is classified as somebody who knows what they're doing, they're reliable, and they never leave the team thinking, what's going on in this dude's head? Which means to be this person, you have to know what you're doing at all times of the match, which, let's be honest, is what's holding 90% of people back. Be part of the exclusive 10% and put in the work. It seriously makes the game so much more fun. But this idea of being a team contributor might add pressure to your gameplay, and that's not what you want. Don't let others' opinion of you discourage you from continuing your journey to greatness. Playing ranked, and most importantly having those awkward experiences, is the fastest way to grow and learn. A great way to get started, and something I do myself every game, is to set the goal of getting 1 kill per round. There's a max of 24 rounds before overtime hits, and if there's one thing for sure, kills add up quick. If you play as a team and don't overly force yourself to get this kill, you will be a key part of your team, and even a top fragger if you're in a lower rank bracket right now. All your favorite professionals started at the same level as you, but of course they didn't show this in VALORANT because of the mindset they carried from other games that made it really easy in this game to climb. So if you want to be the best, you have to put in the work, even if it's minimal. All of your favorite professionals started at the same level as you, but of course when they came to VALORANT, they didn't show this because they have already carried the mindset from other games that they've mastered, and it made it super easy in this game to climb. So if you want to be the best, you have to put in the work just like the pros. Even if that means starting with minimal practice, warm-up, VOD review, anything will help you. The only thing separating you from a professional is just how much time you're putting into that work. From there, you will graduate to what I call an impact performer. This is somebody who not only shows on the top of the leaderboard, but earns a spot by being a player you hope to be last alive. The fastest way to be this person is to master being a team contributor. As I had to remind myself a lot on my own grind, if you can't get 1 kill, how are you going to get multiple? On the other side, the slowest way is to go in with the mindset of trying to get the most kills. If you push yourself beyond your capable limits, you will ultimately finish lower than if you had just gone in slow and steady, basically at your own pace. I'm not saying don't push yourself, I'm just saying don't do what you know you're not capable of yet. And I really do mean yet, because if you master your own comfort level right now, it's for sure going to gradually build and build and build, faster than you think. So that being said, skill is earned, and if you master the fundamentals, just like any skill in life, makes all the harder, prettier, and more fun stuff possible. So tip number 2 is, of course, agent selection and mastery. I'd say the most important thing is to play off your already current strengths. If you are amazing at being the team's Cypher or Killjoy, master it by learning how to use your utility more efficiently by watching videos. If you're a certified fragger and love utility that helps you do so, then master how to take sites more efficiently and how to delay enemy pushes with utility. And if you're like me and love to play controllers like Omen, think of better spots to smoke and when to smoke them. For example, stopping pushes. Sit down and think about what characters or playstyles have gotten you the most success, because at the end of the day, the more comfortable and confident in game you are, the more you will win and the better you will do. We can all agree that when you're uncomfortable, it means you're on your heels, and we don't ever want to feel like that again. When thinking about this, think heavily about what utility you absolutely love to have at all times. I'm going to use me again as an example. I love Omen because he has smoke, so I can support my entire team as a whole, but also I have a flash, and I could use that for an infinite amount of possibilities. So get really good at one thing and master it. After all, a one trick can go pro. However, if you feel like adopting a new agent, it's never too late, and your knowledge of one will strengthen all the rest you play. Even if you had your ears plugged for this whole tip, the biggest takeaways are, yes, to play off your strengths, but also don't be afraid to watch videos. This is something that I avoided and I seriously regret it. By watching videos and then practicing new info in custom games, 1 hour can honestly be equal to 1 rank up. And if you're at a lower rank bracket, honestly 1 hour could be equal to 3 rank ups. For me, for example, I practice Omen one-ways and making them as fast as possible. By first practicing how to do a one-way and then speeding it up as fast as I can, I'll be sure that when I'm in game, I carry the same haste and I won't ever be caught off guard by enemies. Which will come in handy for tip number 3, which is how to push. I'll keep this short and sweet. Start by always communicating a game plan, clearly stating which site you'll end at and who should be doing what. You're going to be deciding which site is best to take by characters you know tend to be on that site, the skill level of that player, the difficulty of taking that site in particular, your team's post-plan success on that site, and past round successes. Alright, I have a little visual to show you what I'm really talking about here. Let's just say Cypher on the other team has 5 kills and Sova, he's got 15. You've already successfully taken and held a post-plan on A site, but on C site it's a whole different story. And as long as you're taking A or C site and not B, it's going to be a pretty smooth take. Well, as long as you're not trouncing around for 5 minutes right before you take the site. You've now used all 4 pieces of the puzzle to choose which site to take. Truly just use previous rounds to make educated guesses, guys. Next is to apply pressure early to always keep enemies on their feet, limit information to them, and quickly create avenues to take advantage of. I would say Ascent is the most common map where this is practiced. No matter what, you always have someone smoke bottom mid, if not both cat and mid. But in my opinion, this could be used in so many other variations. For example, smoking market, smoking garden, smoking top mid. This is put to full use on Haven, because if you smoke A long or C long, it is game over for the other team. If you've actually been the one holding the site where one of these smokes lands, you're on edge the whole time that smoke is alive. Bind is really the only exception to this, where you're going to be saving your smokes for site takes more of the time. It's best to just use one smoke as a fake / information blocker, and then save at least one for a site take. If you smoke long every round, you could eventually push this and they won't suspect it since it's been done every round. You just have to watch out for pushes, since they'll try and clear it to see if you're actually there or not. This goes hand in hand with keeping one player on that site that you smoke to draw attention. He will not only be a lurker who catches enemies, but someone who sells the fake to make the real site take a surprise. Making sure to have whoever is doing this use utility is vital to really selling a fake, because when do you ever take a site without utility? It'll be too obvious. So do this unless you're just trying to create some quick noise to then join your team in the real site take. An underlooked aspect is having to commit to a site once you're too deep, and this is just not true. Sentinel's defense is great in not only being able to solo hold a site, but what's more important is they're able to keep map control with tripwires and turrets. This is one of the simplest solutions to being able to rotate on the fly. Failure to do so, and it could be a real gamble. This is because enemies could be already behind you, and when you go to rotate, they're just waiting for you, which means that sometimes it can be more detrimental than just to straight up take the site, even if you know there's already 3 people waiting on that site. So make sure to place those trips and always have a sentinel. A rule of thumb is to think numbers. Why push a site that you've already given yourself fully away to and have already started rotations to? You lose half of the advantage of the take, which is element of surprise and explosion, and also the numbers game. A 1v5 or a 2v5 is much easier than a 3v5 or a 4v5. So speaking of those advantages, surprise and explosion, when taking a site, it's key to use many utilities in unison for the best results. Smoking entrances, clearing spots with your grenades, flashing the site right before you take it, smoking or walling off positions to get deeper into the site. These are all things things that if done alone are 2 times less useful. Make sure to do all of these things in unison, and you'll take almost every site that you set your sights on. Next, as long as you don't make it completely obvious you've given all map control to take a site, you're going to need to full send the utility, and never push alone to allow for trades. By committing, and even if you fail, you now know your weaknesses and strengths as a team. Half-ass the take and you'll only gain an L on the scoreboard. Half-ass it and you won't learn anything, because you won't know your team's potential yet. There's infinite utility combinations in Valorant, so get creative and start to notice how characters are similar to recreate past success, even if your team doesn't select all the characters you would have hoped them to. Now this is where I think you will gain the most value, and it's tip number 4, understanding when to rotate on defense. We're only going to focus on defense since knowing this will help you predict when you're causing rotations to happen on your offensive side. So generally, you're going to want to stack the harder sites. And positions to make your split. Split is referring to where you split your team up to hold spots. Begin your setups by asking yourself where you're most susceptible for defeat or your weak points. To do this, you take into account what each player excels at utility wise, player preferences, and where they like to hold. Basically how strong your agent is going to be able to stop a push on that angle in particular. Don't be afraid to suggest ideas politely. Most people are open to swapping around, and definitely if someone could be more useful playing another spot or site. Just be prepared to compensate for inadequate positioning by playing close by or just giving up the site when they take it. Which leads me into something very important, which is playing for retake. Utility isolates, which will make your take stronger than hold because you can isolate more. The only downside is now the other team will pick on this site, which is when swaps become especially more vital. But something you shouldn't be doing is stacking that site, as then the other site is going to be more susceptible, and chances are they're not going to hit that same site 2 times in a row. Most teams are going to go and try to get to the other site. Teams will just take notice of this weak point. They're going to be switching it up, go to a different site to bring your attention away from that weak point, to then use it later and exploit it. If you fall into the trap of stacking a site, especially the round after you just got demolished on it, chances are you're going to get demolished on the other site. So hold your ground, play as a team, and play for retake when needed. And not all sites are equal. Play for retake on the easily retakeable sites, leading me into always anchoring a site to prevent an easy take unless beyond reasonable doubt bombs not coming to your site. And while sometimes mistakes happen, don't allow your boredom or wanting to get kills to get the better of you. Most teams are going to rotate when they see 4 players there, and if your team loses the site, they can always play retake and wait for you. In the case they rotate, it's all on you to hold that site in one of 2 ways. You can push unexpected areas to help with a retake effort later on, which is riskier, or you yourself can always play for retake and listen for footsteps plus the planer. I would say you're going to do this most of the time, unless you're playing a particular site that makes it easy to get a kill, fall behind cover, get another kill, or buy time for your team to arrive. Which again leads me into my 5th and final tip, becoming a more patient player. Let's face the reality, you become bored and impatient when you feel like you need to get more kills. Especially in times like this, stop looking at the leaderboard. Play slow, because ultimately, slow allows you to think things through. If you play faster than usual, it can throw off your groove, making you perform even worse, especially if you're already performing poorly to begin with. This is a game where you plant the bomb to win, which means running down the clock wins games. It's literally all about time and educated guesses, which can become more educated with practice. Which means playing patient in this game is all the more important. This is counterintuitive, but by remembering the ultimate goal of winning over fragging, you will frag more. Speaking of impatience is waiting to rotate. This is literally the exact same thing as before. You find the urge to over-rotate in times where you feel like you need to compensate for your lack of performance. And usually you're hoping these will be some easy kills. More often than not though, you'll find yourself in the same spot as before, forcing yourself to play at an uncomfortable pace, and if not that, oh wait, they're planning on the site you just left. Seriously though, remember what we said before, anchor the site until it's beyond reasonable doubt that the bomb is in fact not at your bomb site. And you'll win the rotate lottery 90% of the time, because enemy lurkers thrive when you leave the site with crickets on it. Myself, I've progressed slowly to a point where months ago I would be proud of. To be able to say you did it whether you were alone or not, because now you carry the skill level of that rank. And as long as you maintain practice, you can sustain it for as long as Valorant is around. Personally, I'm not happy with my results even though they're good, and the chances are you won't be either. I can guarantee that if you aim train daily as well as set the goal of doing 1 VOD review a day, you will be happy with your results, because the more work you put in, the greater the results will inevitably be. Some smaller topics though are doubt, for instance, which will inevitably come, but you need to remember one thing. You shouldn't be caring what other people, especially in game, think about you or your play. We all have bad days in games. We can all agree it's more fun to have an on day, which is even more reason to stay committed to improving your game. The results will speak for themselves when you look back on each day, week, month, and act. You're playing this game to have fun, and most of the time you D-rank, as long as you put in the work finding your mistakes, it means great change is coming. So many times when I played ESEA before Valorant even came out, I knew I was going to reach the next level of play because of a D-rank. Keep this mindset with you and it will become reality. Lastly, tilt, an infamous topic, and one lots of players including myself deal with. To put it simple, the more skilled you are, the more fun the game will become, which in turn will instead bring out emotions of respect for your enemy rather than jealousy, envy, or anger. A free and simple thing to do is mute the enemy team. So if you're having trouble with this aspect, just rid yourself of the stress entirely. Each game, and especially the harder ones, will make you better in the end as long as you can learn from them via VOD review, or better yet, by making adjustments in-game by training your skills. Be thankful for the experience and avoid getting angry at yourself or others, especially the others part, since it's completely out of your control how someone else is going to perform. There's literally millions of decisions in each game down to the stroke of each key. Don't fool yourself into thinking there isn't one thing you could have done better in a match, because if there's one thing for certain, all you need is you to be the best in the game. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.